If we're really going to be honest about where this started, it really started with the fact that I came into the world on a death portal. So I was born with this really rare congenital heart defect that should have effectively killed me. At the time that I was born, that surgery was very rare. There was like two surgeons in the US doing that surgery at all. Um, and I had the surgery. I like died on the table, came back. So I had an NDE at birth. So I was born, died, came back type of thing. And I have maintained my entire life that that was the moment which, when I returned, I did not return what I would consider to be a normal child.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I am your host, Julie Clough, and I invite you again to like, subscribe, share, all the things to help us get these messages out. Because today I have a very special guest, Shakti Rios, and
Yeah.
hopefully I said that correctly.
Thank you.
Oh, I just love you. We met in a class in 2021
Mhm.
studying human design.
Mhm.
And I had read all the books and I was just like deep in it. And then I took this year-long class and we were in that same class and we had so much fun.
Yes, we sure did. That was one hell of a group.
It really was.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited to have you here today because it's been a little while since we've connected. So share a little bit about who you are, Shakti, and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. So, hello, everyone. My name is Shakti, and I am a psychic strategist and shadow coach for entrepreneurs, specifically what I call rebellious spiritual entrepreneurs. My focus with them is collapsing identity ceilings. So, I really work in the shadow realms that keep leaders from expanding things like authority, power, and sales. So that's really where I step into their world. People usually land in my world when they're like, I have the thing, I'm doing the thing, but I don't feel good. I
Mhm.
don't feel good and or I'm experiencing a lot of resistance or a lot of delay, or even though the money is doing this, my body's doing the other thing. There's some sort of dissonance in their experience and it goes beyond a logical strategic answer. So
Mm.
that's when they usually arrive at my doorstep, and that's when the work begins. So I have been doing that for the past few years now. And what really began that journey was when you and I met, I was doing human design work as well as EFT work sort of separately. I'm a master emotional freedom technique practitioner as well. And so I was kind of working with my little pod of human design people. And then I was working with my little pod of EFT, energy psychology people. And then I started being consulted for business on the side. And eventually that all merged and became my company, Phoenix Legacy, and now becomes the source and the center point of my world and my work. I'm also a mom of two little kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I homeschool them as well, which is another full-time job. And my life is very busy. There's a lot of activities and a lot of things that happen all of the time. But my work in the world is my favorite thing. And I have so much fun doing it. It feels like I get to play every day. And I'm really, really grateful for it.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And as we were chatting before we went live just now, I was reminded of how many things we have in common in the human design
Mhm.
aspect of things. But then when you're talking about homeschooling, I homeschooled my kids for 15 years and too. So definitely have some things in common. Although
Yeah.
I did remind you, Shakti, that I'm old enough to be your mom, and that's okay. I love
Yeah.
that. Love that.
In this life, yes.
In this life, I love it. So take us back a little bit. How did you end up in this realm of human design? Like, what is it? Like, some people might not have even ever heard of human design.
Yeah.
Start wherever feels like the best
Okay.
place to start.
So in my previous incarnation in this life, I have done a lot of work. So I started my first business when I was 21 as a psychic medium. That was the work that I started doing. And I had an office and I did that work. And after a year, I got pulled into body work. So I had graduated from the University of Florida, but I knew that I didn't want to continue climbing that kind of educational space. So I went into a very prominent massage school that was considered to be very special and very high level, and it was. And I then dedicated 10 years of my life to body work. So I was introduced to human design during my time of being a body worker. I had just had my son. I'll never forget that. I just had Santiago. So this was 10 years ago. And um, the person who had taken my space while I was on maternity leave, right, was this young woman who had taken my spot. And when I came back, she meets me one day and she just looks at me and goes, "Have you ever heard of human design?" Out of nowhere, just very serendipitous. Human design found me in such a very like destiny kind of method, you know? And I'm like, "No." So she runs my chart and she sees that I'm a projector and she goes, "Oh, you need to know about human design. Like, you need to know like yesterday about human design." And I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." And she's like, "Listen to these things." You know, she like gives me the, and that really started my relationship to design. And coming into I still remember sitting in my massage room listening to Raw and feeling like jolts of lightning going through my body. It was such a
Wow.
visceral reaction to this system. And I knew a few things immediately. Number one, I was going to know this system for the rest of my life. And number two, I was going to teach it. And I didn't, I just met it, but I knew it was like destiny found me in that room. And right after that happened, that young woman disappeared. She like got fired. I never saw her again. It was like literally she just walked in, dropped this into my life, and then promptly disappeared. But that
Well,
moment changed my life.
yes, for sure, 100%. And when you feel that alignment, it's like lightning.
Yes.
But I want to go back because you just passed over. I was working as a psychic medium.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
wait a second, there's a
Yeah.
story there.
There's so many stories, girl. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So,
So
how
many.
in the world did you end up in that field? And I feel like we've kind of traded places a little bit.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So this really starts with my birth. Like, if we're really going to be honest about where this started, it really started with the fact that I came into the world on a death portal. So I was born with this really rare congenital heart defect that should have effectively killed me. At the time that I was born, that surgery was very rare. There was like two surgeons in the US doing that surgery at all. And I had the surgery. I like died on the table, came back. So I had an NDE at birth. So I was born, died, came back type of thing. And I have maintained my entire life that that was the moment which, when I returned, I did not return what I would consider to be a normal child or have a normal filter on
Yeah,
reality.
that
That
makes
happens all the
sense.
time. NDEs really give people like their filter opens up. Like we all have the filter, but some people's are just born shut, and mine just exploded open and it stayed that way. And so my whole life as a child, I knew that I had extrasensory perception. I heard spirits my entire life. That was not weird. Seeing them, hearing them, interacting with them. I had healing power. I've done all of that was normal. I didn't think a thing of it. It was just how my life was. Um, and so when as I got older, though, you know, teenage years and stuff like that, you kind of forget all of these things, and life becomes way more material. It becomes more 3D. And I just faced a lot of difficult things as a young adult. And so I kind of forgot about all those things until I went to Egypt when I was 21 on a trip with school. And I had massive activation when I landed on that land. And the whole time that I was there, it was like vision, 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 vision. All of these things started happening. And I started to remember a lot of things that I had forgotten. And I
Wow.
also started to see things that I didn't ever know about me. And so when I returned, my life quickly changed after that experience. And that's when I found myself in this metaphysical shop of the town that I was living in at the time. And I met the psychic medium there. And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, mhm. You know, it was kind of like one of those things like, "So you've arrived. Good job." You know, like you made it into the store. And that she became my mentor. She's a brilliant woman, Bernadette Carter King. She is very well known for What is My Spirit Animal. She's a very well known medium, and she would mentor me for years to come after that. And that's really how that started. You know, it was my life is just full of a lot of serendipity, but I also think I was primed very early on to land in that work just because of my birth story. and how I, came into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious how that was for you being a psychic medium working in that space.
Mhm.
It's interesting that you made this transition. I'm just curious what those experiences were like for you, doing that more um, rather than it just kind of happening. You're like purposely connecting for people, and
Mhm.
how that has informed the work that you're doing now.
So, psychic and mediumship work are separate. People a
Yes.
lot of times think they're the same. They are not. So, I do both. I did both. At the time, I was both doing psychic work and mediumship work. Mediumship work was very taxing on my system. I am not as defined as you are. So I was very, very drained by the
Mm.
mediumship work. It takes a lot of energy to pull from the other side of the veil and to get information. And I'm a very open projector. And now I realize what was happening. At the time, I didn't have that language, but now I know it's happening. I just got really tired of doing it. And for me, when mediumship, like, it was funny because before someone would make an appointment and before they were in my room, let's say they were parking their car outside of the building where I was in, that person's loved one was already in the room. They were
Mm.
already waiting for them. And I would feel, I get this like ringing sound in my ear. It sounds like an old corded phone ringing sound. And it would be like ring. And I'd be like, oh, they're here. They got here early. And then it would be like I was a very I'm very clairsentient and claircognizant. So,
Mm.
unfortunately for me, I would feel how they died in my body, and I would feel all these kinds of things that were really difficult to feel in the
Yeah.
body. So, after a while of doing that, I was like, I really can't hold this energy. Like, I was super young too. I was 21. So, I was like so young and so untrained because my mediumship ability just was far bigger than what I had uh, practice around.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing that work, but I never stopped doing the psychic work. And so now when I work with my clients, I'm constantly channeling strategy for them all of the time. That's why I call myself a psychic strategist because they will be presenting something to me and I'll be like, no, that's not correct. Like that's not going to work. And this is why, you need to do it this way. And this is going to work out so much better for you. Sometimes the mediumship still shows up. Like I've had a few times working really deep with like identity blocks and limitations with my clients where someone from the lineage will step forward, and that's because I also practice something called quantum kinesiology. So I'm usually in people's field doing like clearing work. And as I'm doing that, I can see timeline as well. I can perceive timeline. So I can perceive where something has happened in a generational aspect or dimension that is affecting the person right now, that is actually not about them. And so that's where that ability really steps in. But it's not like it used to be. I have learned how to keep that kind of perception out and just receive the story or receive the message without it like fully embodying my body, which was the original problem that I was
Yeah.
having.
Super draining.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It's as you're talking, I was just thinking about the fact that you don't know any different. Like this is just who you came in, like you had this near-death experience when you were a baby. There's no before memory of what it's like to be a typical human with that veil closed off and that kind of thick separation between spirit world, this world, all the psychic, all the, you just this is just who you are and you don't know any different. That's so fascinating to me
Yeah.
because I can look at and kind of look at, okay, before this, like my life, and I'm sure yours too, but just in a different way, has just felt like, okay, then there was this piece and then there was this piece, and like there's very delineated
Mhm.
sections where before this happened and after that happened and before this happened and after that happened, it's like very significantly different
Mhm.
timelines that I've lived in one lifetime. And 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 I'm sure that's been the case for you too, but all of yours have been lived in this openness.
Yes, that's exactly the difference.
Yeah.
I have delineators of identity for sure. or I can
Right.
see how my identity has evolved, but I've always had a relationship to spirit to the degree that I'm having it in this moment, in this conversation. Like this entire idea that people would be discussing the existence is like laughable to me. Like I literally laugh when I see people be like, how do you know? I'm like, are you fucking blind? Like I literally am like, how do you not fucking, but again, to your point, because I came in the way I came in, I don't even understand that conversation.
Right.
I don't even
Right.
get it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just it's the water you swim in. You don't know any difference.
Yeah, right. It's like, what do you mean? Like,
So fascinating. So
um,
fascinating. So so share a little bit about what human design is because you used some language which I recognize because I'm trained in human design as well, but you use some language like openness
yeah,
and
yep.
definition and so forth. So uh, as you're really good at this. You're an excellent communicator. I love seeing what you're posting on Instagram because because you're such a good, clear communicator. And I love, like, I had forgotten that you were a projector, and I'm using language again that people are like, what in the world are we talking about here? But I'm a projector as well. And we're kind of trained to wait,
Hmm.
wait,
Hmm.
wait. But the way that you're showing up in the world, there's no waiting. You're just like showing up.
I
And
have so
so
much to say
it's
about this.
really
I'm
interesting.
like
I
so
can't wait to
excited.
hear it. I can't wait to hear it. Let's
Excited.
hear it all.
So, human design, to use Ra, who is the person who channeled the system and put the system together, he is the original source of the system, is the science of differentiation. It's literally the science of how you are different. And what I love, when I'm talking about this system, I compare it to astrology because it's a system most people know. Astrology is a system, and what astrology is brilliant at is things like thematics, transits, cycles. It's really good at mapping how your life is developing, how you are coming across certain themes and certain experiences in your life. It's a very zoomed out version, is how I like to see astrology. Human design is very personal. It's very much about the energetic architecture of an individual living being. It could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a human, but it has to be living, right? So it's looking at the energetic architecture of how you were designed to operate within the matrix of reality. So we look at the game of life like a game. It's like your human design tells you this is how you play this game. If you want to be successful at this game, you play it this way. And so as a business consultant, I use design specifically for genius. So I spend my time with my clients looking at design as a map of specialization and genius, which really creates a sense of authority in the marketplace and then allows them to stand out. That's really what I use it for. And that's how I use it. So that is my very quick explanation of human design.
I love it. So share a little bit about because we've thrown this word around a little bit. What
Yeah,
is a projector
yeah.
and why is that? It's one of five
Hmm.
energetic profiles, if
Hmm.
you will,
Hmm.
or signatures.
Hmm.
Um, what is a projector and why is that different than like really the larger percentage of
Of
population?
population. So there are different energetic profiles, and the projector is just one of them. And the greatest differentiator between these profiles is really there's four with a subtype, right? So if we're going to get super technical, so the generator type, which the subtype of that would be the manifesting generator, they're energy types. These are naturally regenerative types. These are the types that have the capacity to generate their own energy seemingly endlessly when they're doing the right thing that really feeds them and really illuminates them, and they don't require as much rest as the non-energetic types, of which the projector is one. So there's a projector, the manifestor, and the reflector. These are considered non-energetic types, right? So that's the majority of the population is an energetic type. They have this ability to go, go, go. And then there's a smaller percentage of the population that are non-energetic types. So when we were speaking about the projector, for example, and the weighting thing, so every type also has a way of operating in the world. There is sort of like rules of engagement for every type that really makes them shine, right? So it's either going to be, waiting to respond, or initiating, or waiting for invitation and recognition, or waiting for a lunar cycle. Everybody has kind of like this rule, which we call strategy. It's like, what is a strategy for your type to succeed in reality? And for the projector, it is known as waiting for the invitation and recognition. Now, as someone who coaches a ton of projectors, I tend to attract every single projector under the sun as a client or a manifester. Those are like the majority of my clients, very interestingly. um, that has often been used against us. So it's like, you need to wait, you need to wait, you need to wait. And while it is true that one thing I do very well is I wait for the invitation, the recognition, there is no such thing as waiting to create content or waiting to create and share genius. So the
Mhm.
thing about projectors that is so special is that we were really designed to become intimately knowledgeable in systems. We're really good at systems. So our really core talent is going into a system and becoming masters of it and then sharing that talent with the world. And as we share, the natural result of that is that the people that are meant to work with us recognize our genius and then step into our world. They invite themselves into our world. That's actually the correct way for a projector to operate in the world of business and in the world of online marketing. There's no waiting to market. It's about waiting to be received, right? So when someone buys an offer of mine or steps into an event that I'm hosting, that's their recognition of my brilliance. I'm not door to door knocking, asking them to sign up for anything, right? I'm just showing up in my pure potency, in my pure mastery, and waiting for those that recognize the potency and the mastery to raise their hands and say, I want to participate in whatever you're doing. And the more that I've done that, which is very true to my design, the more success I've had. And the more I've then encouraged my clients to really do that in their design for their type to create the same level of success.
Mhm. Beautifully said. You just have this mastery for communication and words, and I could just listen to you all day long. So I really appreciate the way that you shared that. So for someone, since the majority of the population, 70%-ish of
Mhm.
the population are generator types,
Mhm.
how does that how is that different? And before I forget, let's talk about why it's important for anybody to even know what their
Mhm.
type is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
important.
So
Well,
let's talk about the generators first and
yeah.
how they're showing up in the
Okay.
world, and then we can talk about like why we would want to know this.
The generators are also different even between them. So, like working with someone who's a pure generator versus a manifesting generator is a very different energy. It's a very different way of building. It's a very different model for how they're going to succeed. The biggest thing about generators when I'm working with them is really understanding authority and like really knowing if you're an emotional authority, for example, meaning you have to wait to really understand the cycles that you're going to flow through when you're making a decision. Or if you're a sacral authority, which is very gut and instinctual, it's like they have to understand that first because they have so much energy that if they're not aware of their authority, they're just wasting a whole bunch of precious energy on shit that doesn't matter and that they probably shouldn't be, right? And then that's how they burn out. They burn out because they use all of the resources that they have in an incorrect fashion. That's how you're going to get a generator that gets burned out. So that's the most important thing for them to understand is like, are you an emotionally defined generator, meaning you have this cycle of these waves in the way that you make decision and you have to learn how to surf them to come to a point of clarity, or are you an instinctual gut knowing kind of a generator that really knows right off bat when something is correct or incorrect for them, because just knowing that alone is going to spare you a tremendous amount of suffering in the world and a
Yeah.
whole lot of bad decision making.
Yeah.
Just that,
Right.
you know.
Which kind of speaks to the next question is why does any of this even matter?
Oh yeah. Well, it matters because of when I defined human design, I said this is the science of how you are different. And I also said this is the way that you play the game of life. So if you really want to understand how to move through life with less resistance and friction, understanding human design is one of the core things I would give you, like I would tell you to go discover and learn about, because it really impacts the way you make decisions and it further impacts the way that you involve yourself, who you surround yourself with, what you decide to dedicate your life to and your energy resources to, it is an essential understanding of what you really came here to be in the world. And without that, I feel like we're just wasting a lot of really valuable time and energy. And then we end up feeling things like stuck or resentment or, checked out. And then we end up in addictive behaviors and things of this nature because we don't actually understand why we're here or what is the best use of our energy and time.
Yeah. When I discovered human design, it was actually a friend that I had met through the grief world. She had experienced a loss as well, and we were both in this grief coaching, healing space. And we met each other, and then all of a sudden she was talking about human design, and she was talking about human design on a podcast. And I called her one day and I said, "What in the world are you talking about?" I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm super curious. That's my nature. I'm super curious. And so I started to learn a little bit from her, and she had learned from Karen Curry Parker, who was also who we were meeting with
Mm-hmm.
weekly for a year,
Mm-hmm.
talking about all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just endlessly fascinating. And it was at that point that I learned I was a projector,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned th this whole idea of not having that defined sacral center, which another buzzword for that center that gives us that sustained energy. And people would for years they would look at me like, how do you do everything that you do?
Same.
And because I was just, again, endlessly fascinated by everything,
Yeah.
energized by everything, lit up by everything, trying to do all the things. But learning that I was a projector gave me permission to slow everything down and realize that everything that I was doing was not actually in alignment for me. I was just being powered up by other people's
Mm-hmm.
energy and amplifying that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you could put this in better language so people can understand it, but it was really impactful for me. It changed my life.
Yeah, that's 100% it. It changed my life also. What ends up happening when you look at your design, just when you first run your chart, is you'll notice there are spots in your chart that have color and spots in your chart that don't. So the more white space you have in your chart, the more openness you have in your design, the more color you have in your chart, the more definition you have in your design. The thing about what matters here to understand from a very general perspective is that the more open you are, the more amplification you have. So if you're a very open design, and you can be open, even I've seen a generator with only two centers defined. So I've seen very open generators that look like a projector by design, but they have a defined sacral, right? However open you are, you tend to take on and amplify a lot of energy. So the more defined you are, the more consistent you are in your own energy. You still have amplification depending on where you are open, but it's mitigated by the definition that you carry in your design. So this becomes also very important to understand because you start to look at the patterns you've built into. This is like where my shadow work really steps into, is looking at the patterns we've built in our life and how we've operated. And are we operating from a place of like amplifying other people's energy, which is what you were just speaking to? Or are we actually honoring our own cycles of energy? For myself, for example, I'm a projector. I only have three centers defined, but one of them is the ego, which is considered a motor. It has a source of energy that's not like the sacral, but it does. But this operates in a very rest and work cycle. So I can go pretty hard for like a minute and then I've got to stop. And then I can go pretty hard and then I've got to stop. And so when I really understood that, I would then optimize my work cycles really hard and then I would stop. Right. And that's really when I started to come into harmony with my own energy. This day and age, I'm like busier than I've ever been. And I'm so energized.
Mm,
I am not tired at all. I'm like,
mm,
let's fucking go.
mm,
My schedule is slammed. I've got clients and masterminds and I'm like, let's go. Because I've really organized my schedule and my life to fit the cycle. And so now, like, I fill my own cup. I have a lot of restorative practices that I've brought into my life. I fill my own cup, and then I'm so ready to go and pour out and really be like the most, right, in my world. So that's another, like, this is why it's so fascinating to understand this, because if you're someone that's like, I'm always tired, or I'm burnt out, or many of your listeners might very well be at that point, hence finding your podcast, it's probably because you're completely out of alignment and you're not working with the natural rhythms that you were born to work with.
Yeah, when I discovered all this and I looked back over my life and some of the health things that I
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
been challenged with, and
Hmm.
when I look back over my life, I can't remember a time when I wasn't tired.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so
Crazy.
crazy. And the other thing that I would kind of beat myself up, and I'm sharing this because it is important for us to look this up and start to dive into it a little bit, and because one of the things that I would beat myself up about is I had 6 children. I was homeschooling. I was teaching piano lessons. I was volunteering. Sometimes I was working out, working at a company. I had a lot of iterations of things that I was doing. But I can remember one of the things that really stood out to me is when we would travel with the family and we would come home. And as soon as we got home, all I wanted to do was get in bed. And all my husband wanted to do was unpack the car. I don't know why this stood out to me so much, but he comes home, he unpacks the car, he unpacks it. To this day, we come home from a flight, we come home from a trip. He comes home, he puts his suitcase out, he's a generator, and he unpacks everything, and I put my suitcase down and I go to bed. I'm like, I have been absorbing everybody's energy in the airport all day long, and I need to lay flat. And it
Amen.
was understanding what was happening that gave me so much more grace for myself, so much compassion for myself,
Yeah.
and so much grace and compassion for my husband, who was wanting to do something a little different. And then recognizing that I was raised by generators.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the expectation was always, you
Go,
keep
go,
going, you
go.
keep going, you keep going. Yeah, so I'm sharing that just as an aside to, like, if you haven't looked into this, it's valuable to look into it. So if someone was to go and look at their chart for the first time and they don't know anything about it, what are some of the key things that you would suggest to someone that they look at first?
The first four things that I think are most valuable are going to be the tried and true type, strategy, and authority, and profile. And I will give disclaimers for why. The type, obviously, because it really gives you the larger premise for what your energy type is and what you're going to be dealing with in terms of energy management. The strategy underneath that, every strategy is paired with a type. So every type has their strategy, and I call the strategy the way you play the game, right? So if you want to understand how you play the chess game of life, the strategy is kind of like the instructions, like this is how you win in this game, is you do this. And then authority is how you answer the questions that come up in the game. So as you're playing the strategy of your game and you're like, do I go left or do I go right? Authority answers that question for you. So it teaches you how to make correct decisions to guide you on the pathway. So those three are essential. Now, the profile line, which is going to look like a number slash another number, is a core part of how I work with my clients. And in the business realm, I use it a lot for marketing and understanding how to communicate value to the market. Because every profile line, I have since created a whole series. Like I've renamed the profile lines from a business standpoint, and I actually have a whole YouTube video where I talk about what they each are and why I've renamed them. But what those lines teach you is how your body and your mind, the roles they are designed to play in reality. And from just a business standpoint, it really explains to you what people find valuable about you in the marketplace. And so, for example, I'm a 1-3 profile. So I'm very intellectual, very studied, have all the certifications on the planet on my wall for sure. If you need to know something, you ask me because I probably know my son calls me the encyclopedia for perspective, right? And he doesn't know anything about this, but he already knows my one-line nature. If he has a question, he goes to me, not the dad. It's me. You're going to know the answer to this question, okay? Very classic one line. And then my third line, which is all about trial and error. Like my body is a very third line body, near death experience at birth, lots of health stuff, lots of this stuff, like very third line experimental, right? But what the value that brings to the marketplace, number one, my one line, very knowledgeable. My third line, very experienced. I've tried everything. I've tried more than you've tried, times 25, right? Because I've the third line nature of being very experimental, right? So when you understand your profile lines, you get a very good insight into the roles that you've been playing this whole time and just didn't know about them. And also the roles that shape your destiny in terms of how you function in humanity and are valuable in humanity, which is why I love them. So those would be the four things: the type, strategy, authority, and profile.
Love it. Love it. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that what's so interesting is that as humans, we tend to look at life as very right and wrong, left or
Oh
right,
my God.
and we have this
Crazy.
duality in our thinking, and we
Yeah.
think that the way that I do things is the way that everyone should do things.
Mhm.
If I have this belief system, everybody should have that
Mhm.
belief system. If this has been proven to be successful for one person, it should work for everybody. This is the way that we have been conditioned to think.
Totally.
And we are moving, like we have moved into the century of recognizing our individual
Yes.
reasons for being here. We're
Yes.
not here to be the same person as the next person. We're
100%.
here to be we're here to be us. We're here to be us. We're here to have our own experiences. We're here to be Shakti and have a near-death experience as an infant and bring that wisdom into the world, or
Yeah.
to be someone else who is closed off from all of that and
Yeah.
experience life from that perspective.
Yes.
And it's all okay.
Yes.
It's all okay. And when we can realize that we all came here with a different astrology design, a different human design, a different way of looking at the world, different way of interacting with the world, life is just so much
Totally.
better when we can open our mind to the fact that I don't have to be like the next person, and the next person doesn't have to be like me. I don't know.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that?
I will extrapolate that even more and say that when you realize that getting lost in any of those conversations is a precious waste of your time, you will
Mm,
be shocked at how much more life force you have within you. One of the things that has been done, and I think pretty intentionally, is our energy is being siphoned and very much directed to be afraid, to resist each other, to fight each other, to why? Because human potential is incredible. If you really understood what you're capable of and what you could create, any darkness in the reality would overnight disappear. It would just disappear. They'd have no potential. There'd be nothing that could hold people down. So there is a very vested interest in having your attention and having your energy be distracted by things that are really pointless to the greater conversation, right?
yeah.
So if you only understood that, like your energy is precious, you are insanely valuable. There will never be another you on this planet ever again. No iteration of you like you now will ever exist. So the more time you spend wasting that individuation of your soul in this lifetime, it's just a massive waste. Massive. And so I made the decision long ago that I would not have my energy controlled by anything other than me. That circumstances do not determine how I feel or how I move, which is why I've created everything I've created. And that's now my mission, is to awaken women to that within them. And in so doing, create a whole movement of very wealthy and agency filled women that can make choices that improve reality. Because when women are in power, they do incredible things. And so that is my personal movement and my personal work in the world. But I just really hope that everybody who comes in contact with this conversation makes that decision that they will no longer allow their precious energy to be manipulated by anything outside of themselves because they are that level of important. And that's not subjective, that is completely objective.
Yeah. And we've been so conditioned to feel like if we step into that space, that somehow we're being egoic
Oh, yeah.
or selfish
Yeah. 100%.
or
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any advice for someone who is feeling that need
Mhm.
to kind of step out of the shell that they've been living in, to
Mhm.
step out of the conditioning. They're starting to recognize we're all conditioned. We just
Mhm.
are. It's the condition that we live in is to be
To be
conditioned.
alive.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Like depending on where we were born, what family we were born into, what
Mhm.
conditions we were born into, all those things condition us in a certain way. When we start to recognize that, what thoughts do you have? What advice do you have? What can you offer to someone who is feeling that urge, that soul pull to
Mhm.
move forward in a more powerful way, but also feeling that resistance?
So I have a defined ego in human design. I might not be the person to ask this question. I'm just gonna tell you right now. Because this is who I am, right? Like I have a defined ego, which means this is what I've known, this is what I've done, this is how I move in the world. However, I work with a lot of undefined ego clients. So this is a conversation that comes up a lot. The first thing I will say is that if your soul is calling you to anything, whether it's stepping out of your shell or making a decision or something like this, and you're facing resistance, then that tells me that there's an underlying emotional thematic that's preventing you from moving forward. So before you make any moves, I tell my clients this phrase: before you move, feel. You need to make space for the emotion that's arising in you over this thing that you're being called into. So if you feel resistance, it could be fear, it could be pressure, it could be grief, it could be any number of emotions. So the first thing to do is to address the emotion. What is the core emotion that you are experiencing in this moment that feels like a wall between you and what you know you need to do, between you and where you know you need to go? So in the example that you're giving, it's usually being rejected by other people. That if I hold my line or if I stand in my power, people are not going to like this. And I'm going to lose people that I love, right? One of the main reasons we don't evolve in this world is because we're afraid it's going to cost us people that we love. That's actually one of the primary reasons people don't grow in reality, is that they're afraid the cost will be someone they love. So, from a mental standpoint, I will tell you that you have to be okay with that. You have to come to a place of understanding that if it does cost you people that you love, then that was the price, right? That's just what it has to be okay, right? And you don't have to accept that, but then you also can't grow in the direction that you want to grow in. So, that's where your choice
And
comes
both
in.
are uncomfortable.
Both are uncomfortable, and you have free will. So, you get
Yeah.
to choose whichever one you want, but that's just the reality of that. Now, if you do the emotional work and you collapse the fear and you're like, I'm terrified, I don't want to do this, I have resistance. This is where my EFT work really comes in with my clients, where I'm usually moving them through various EFT protocols to collapse that resistance. At the end of that, something always emerges, which is a really deep truth. And when that truth emerges and they see it and they no longer have the emotional component, the resistance drops. And then they're able to do what they need to do because now they're no longer having the emotional flare up. Resistance is usually indicative of some sort of unresolved emotion underneath that experience. So that's what I would say.
That is so profound because we tend to want to think our way out of things.
Yeah. And
And
you
if
can't.
there's one thing, one of many lessons that I remember learning from Karen when we were in
Mhm.
her classes, that every decision is made from emotion.
100%.
We're not meant to be making decisions from our head. And it's fascinating to me how many people still believe that we make decisions from our head, but there's not one authority, that self-authority, that personal authority. There's not one in human design that says figure it out in your head.
No. No. And I'll be honest, whenever I see a client that's I do tend to get hired by a lot of very intellectual and strategic people. They hire me, which is funny because I'm a quad right and I'm very receptive. I'm very opposite of that. But what I've found is that that's actually a trauma pattern. When you live a lot of uncertainty and a lot of trauma early on in your life, your mind becomes a very safe place to hang out in. It becomes a place that you can
Interesting.
rely on to keep you safe because you've often had to escape there because of what you were living. Emotions become very difficult for you to feel because they were terrifying and then they become unresolved. So that is a telltale sign when someone is really living in their mind and trying to do everything from the mind that there is a plenitude of things that are unresolved underneath the surface. And amazingly, once I am done working with someone, to see them cry for the first time in their adult life and feel an emotion and talk about it is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever experienced. I'm getting emotional talking about it because that is so at the core of the work that I do. It's like the capacity to feel and not run from yourself is like life changing. It changes everything about you, everything. It makes you healthier, it makes you wealthier, it makes you more kind, it makes you more expansive. It is the most healing thing like a human being could come to.
Oh, I I have no words. That's beautiful. And I can see that pattern in my own life. Y- I'm what's coming up for me right now is this question about because a lot of people really like personality tests and those types of things. One of the what's it? Can't remember the name of it. Um,
Enneagram,
no,
that's really
there's a
popular.
the Strengths Finder. I can't remember
Oh,
what it's.
yes,
Yeah.
Strengths Finder. Hmm.
So I had done that test back like 10 years ago,
Hmm.
right? And it's okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit of buzzword here, but I'm also quad right.
Hmm.
But my favorite subject in school was math. I'm like very like left brained, or I've lived my life very left brain. When I did Strengths Finder, a lot of strategy in those upper strengths, and yet that's really not my design.
You have a defined ajna, don't you?
I don't.
You
Oh,
you
Ajna,
you
yes,
do.
yes,
You
yes,
have, so that's the center of analytics.
yes,
So I'd be
yes,
very curious to see what gates and what channels you have collecting the ajna because that would give me more information. But you do have an analytical component to your design, and it's
yes,
probably overused, is what it is. It's just like you have used it a lot. you know.
yeah,
So with a strength finder, the thing about personality tests is that they change. Like you can take that now and take it in 10 years, it's going to be a different test because you are changing. You're an evolving being. The thing about astrology and human design that I love is that it's a template of energy, right? And it accounts for evolution because everything is on a spectrum, right? Your centers exist on a spectrum, the gates exist on a spectrum. Gene Keys shows us that. Everything has a spectrum, right? There's like this patterning in everything where you could be towards this side or that side. And so it accounts for all of that, but it's far more definitive than something like a personality test. And so immediately I think she has a very strong ajna and it's a very used ajna. So then I want to let's look at the gates that you have hanging off the ajna. And then let's look at a few things like let's look at your design Mars, for example, which is a core wound placement. So let's look at is that in your ajna? Mine is. So I know where I have really hung out to solve a lot of my problems and avoid feeling is
yeah.
in my gate 47. You know what I mean?
Really interesting. Yeah, and that's what and it came up earlier when you were talking this idea that astrology, human design, these types of systems are not, you don't look it up and it says, hey, you're going to be an astronaut or you're going to be a doctor. It's like themes.
Yeah.
It's more themes rather
Mhm.
than do this. It's not a
Mhm.
directive. It's a, like you said, it's a blueprint
Spectrum of
for.
possibility. Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. But then also within there with human design, you can really see specialization like so clear. For example, I only have two channels in my chart, which are where I look for specialization a lot. And one of them is in entrepreneurship. Shocking. 4426. I'm so surprised that that's actually right. Like that's exactly what I do. And then the 2551, which is about initiation, another component of my work that I do, right? So
Right.
I am 100% doing what I am wired and have the energy to do. And that's why that's so important. Because whenever you're doing what you have the energy to do, you're super happy. You're like, yeah, I'm doing exactly what I have the energy to do. I'm not doing anything I don't have the energy to do. So this is great, right?
Well, and before we got on the call, I was saying that you were talking about how you kind of started out as a psychic medium and as like we kind of traded places because here I am in this space of psychic mediumship and it surprised me. And I was telling you how much it surprised me. And you were like, why did that surprise you?
I would have said so.
That was
Yeah,
so funny to me.
that
The
is
way you
funny.
responded to that was funny because it definitely surprised me. But I also am a 3/6, which means I have a lot of experimentation
Yes.
in my chart. It's like double experimentation.
Yeah, my son is a 3/6.
Oh,
Yeah, it's rough. I
have
feel for y'all.
fun.
I feel for y'all, like
I
in my
think
soul.
I think my mom would say it's rough too.
But yeah, but you see now you though are in like a big mastery place. Like you are really stepping into like a mastery era right now, which is really exciting. So I think that psychic mediumship finding you right now makes perfect sense for that sixth line design of yours. It's like, of course it is, right? And so your mind gets to stay very innovative in that third line, and your body gets to get very grounded in its mastery. And now you get to go and deliver this thing that has arrived, right? That's really true for you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's great.
So what have we not touched on that you were just wanting to talk about, make sure that we talk about and then share
Mm,
where people can find you.
I don't know if there's anything we haven't touched on that I would like to share. I know that your audience is probably very like spiritual and they're probably on their path. They're trying to find direction, is what I'm imagining your audience is. And I think it's important for people to understand that your soul 100% came here with purpose, with with desire to see itself fulfilled. Like you're not a random human on this planet just floating around. Like every single soul has this directive born in them to fulfill itself. And we all have different reasons for being here. Hence why different expressions, being more closed, more open, or whatever, it's all good. And it's because we all have different reasons for being incarnated. We all have different curriculums we came here to learn. We are not all the same, and we don't all have the same amount of lifetimes under our belt or the same, level of experiences under our belt. So to have enough compassion with yourself while you're on this journey, to not compare yourself to other people, to not make your experiences wrong and other people's experiences right, to not to not downplay your own gifts too. That's a really big one that I work a lot with my clients on. You have genius. I'm a firm believer that every single human being has genius. It's just massively untapped, and they don't understand how to work with it and how to show up in their world with it. And if you can operate in the world from the sense of like compassionate learning, curiosity, and following the threads of your own genius, I think you will surprise yourself with how beautiful of a life you can really create for yourself and how much happier you will feel in the discovery of who you are and in your place in the world. How you will stop feeling out of place and you will suddenly feel like you do belong because you are finally following what you were meant to do always and who you were meant to be.
Fabulous. Wonderful. Now, did you share where we can find you? Share where
So
we
my
can find
favorite
you.
place to hang out is Instagram these days. So my Instagram handle is at Shakti, like my name, SHAKTI.Rios, RIOS. And I also have a website, ShaktiRios.com. You're welcome to go explore there as well. But yeah, come hang out, come say hi. I have a little attunement book I send out to all my new followers. So come get your hands on my little attunement ebook. And I can't wait to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.